probably from Louis and the Shakes.
So
That's it.
easy as that.
Simple
That
as
was always a
that,
good
really.
start. So how did you first get into music?
How did I first get into music? I think a lot of it was probably installed in me through my dad just playing the radio in the car, a lot of CDs, Beatles, Stevie Wonder, Sam Cooke, all that kind of stuff, really. I think just that, like, the positive music, I suppose, the positive sort of side of those sort of artists and bands, you're naturally going to just sort of warm to music whenever you hear it. And then I think from that came the idea of learning to play guitar. And then obviously as you sort of get older, right, you sort of broaden out your sort of eclectic range of artists and styles and stuff like that. I mean, I remember when I first heard Hendrix and it just sort of blew my mind, and that was kind of like, I want to learn Purple Haze. I need to learn that song, you know, and like stuff like that. The same as the Doors. I remember, obviously, like, people know the Doors, like things like Light My Fire, but then to actually really sit down and listen to the Doors. I remember discovering the sort of the Doors and the Stooges at a very similar age. I think I was about 16. And that was, I'd like to call that as like that was when me and my friends all kind of discovered weed as well at the same time. And then from that, you know, you just sort of go on like a whole wave of sound from there on. And it's just exciting.
Is there a certain band or an artist that made you want to become an artist or get into a band or pick up an instrument?
Yeah, I think like it's like, I suppose, a bit of a cliche sort of saying, but like Arctic Monkeys were that sort of time when like I was, I think, about 12 or 13 when they first came onto the scene. And because of the hype and the buzz around them, and everyone wanted to know and listen to Arctic Monkeys, everyone wanted to be a fan. I think that kind of was like, you know, we sort of like lived through a bit of a sort of phenomenon there, you know. People sort of talk about the Beatles and, you know, One Direction, but One Direction thing's like manufactured, right? It's like something that was like born because they wanted to make the money, whereas like things like the Beatles, it happens just naturally and organically, and then people sort of join the ride from that. And I think Arctic Monkeys was our sort of generation's calling for that. And then obviously, yeah, I suppose you can get deeper with it, like, you know, the artistic side of it, like, you know, listening to someone like the Doors again, you know, sort of making amazing albums, and, you know, Electric Lighthouse Orchestra, you know, with strings, and you just sort of like, you broaden, as I said, your horizons, and you're like, I'd love to sort of write something like that one day, or to make an album with a concept, you know, all that kind of stuff, really. But I'd say Arctic Monkeys was probably the band that got me into it. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a certain gig that really stands out in your mind, like probably your first gig that made you really fall in love with music?
I'm not sure if there was like a gig as such. I remember, like, I suppose like festivals was sort of where it was at for me. I remember doing like V Festival one year. I remember doing Festival was like a big sort of moment in my life, a bit of a coming of age sort of moment in the year, I suppose. And just that the buzz around the whole place, you know, all the fields, walking to a stage, finding a new band and stuff like that. Again, I think at that festival I actually saw Johnny Marr, and it was just like, you know, hit after hit. You knew all the words to all the Smith songs, and that was a really cool sort of feeling. And I was like, wow, imagine like sort of being on that stage. It would just be incredible. You know, the buzz that you must get off playing to that. And then obviously, yeah, we kind of, you know, as I said, the band we've done a few festivals now in our time, and like you do get to experience it in such a way, you know, obviously not at the same heights as Johnny Marr quite yet, but you know, we're getting there. And I think the festivals was where it was at for me. It wasn't so much a sort of stand-alone gig.
Yeah, that's it. I think, like you say as well, it's nice when you have that sort of thing when you, like you say, you've witnessed going to festivals, but then you've also seen the other side to it where you've actually played at the festivals as well, which is not something that everyone can say. I mean, I've been to festivals and loved it, but I've never been able to say that I've actually been on a stage and actually played at a festival. And, you know, it's something that's, I suppose you can treasure it, because like I say, it's not something that everyone can say that they've done. And I think you appreciate a festival more when you've actually seen that side to it as well.
I'm totally with you there. Like, again, even just like playing a gig, like to actually get up there and be under the lights, it's a very different and very surreal experience, you know. And the guys will tell you that I don't sort of shy away from the light, you know. If anything, I sort of change, you know. I sort of, you know, really get drawn in by the crowd and get immersed with the whole sort of experience, you know. And I think that does come to being a fan of the music as well, and being on the other side, like you said, because you know, like, I suppose some of the best gigs I've been to is when I'm like clapping and singing along, and you know, you're rocking in the mosh pit or whatever like you want to be doing. And though I think you take like mental notes subconsciously, that I'm like, right, when I do play a festival now, that's what I want to like capture again. That's the kind of moment I want to create, you know, that hysteria. Yeah, but that's where it's at, really.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit like about your latest single that you have out?
Yeah, it's funny actually. It's got some big news, which is pending announcement for October, right when our album is actually due out as well. But the single on one for me, it was kind of one of the 3 songs that I first wrote a couple of years ago. That was this kind of like new wave of sound that the guys and I sort of talk about quite a bit now, because it was kind of a changing of the tides moment. Before that, our EP, Late Night Stereo, was quite like vintage, quite old school in its style and recording really as well, and production. And I kind of felt like if we were to progress to the next step, it needed a bit of a shake up. Pardon the sort of band name pun. And yeah, like I said, it was one of the 3 songs that I took to the guys, and they were actually like, "Oh, like shit, this is really good, and like we can get on board with this." You know, that their eyes all kind of lit up, and were like, "I can hear this already on stage, or I can hear this in the studio. I know exactly what I'm going to do." And like suddenly there was a buzz about what we were doing again. Whereas I don't want to say we like plateaued or anything like that, but you know, I think it was almost like coming to a bit of a head, really. And then yeah, so the song is kind of like, again, I remember writing it because I was feeling all those things at the time. I was a bit worried like the band was about to sort of break up, and that sort of, you know, freaked me out, because I was like, oh shit, what am I going to be doing? And then it kind of just got me thinking like, well, actually, I'm going to keep going. Like, are the guys with me though? And it was kind of a bit of about that. It was sort of about just sort of proving other people wrong and coming up trumps, you know, like smashing through the glass ceiling, all that kind of stuff, really. It's got a real sort of edge to it. And then stylistically and sonically, I think it's kind of one of our songs that really defines us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of like to say that it's like, again, drawing comparison with Arctic Monkeys. Like, when someone says Arctic Monkeys, you think of like Are You Mine, or you think of I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor, right? And I think for us, well, certainly, as I say, certainly in my eyes, this one is our sort of defining song, because I think it's got, you know, it's got everything that's kind of Louis and the Shakes. It's got a structure that's like quite unique. It's got the vocals, the BVs, lyrics are quite like different and cutting edge, unique for their sort of time. And I like to think relevant as well. And then yeah, it's got, as I said, like Manny's drumming on it, and Jamie's like guitar solos. It's all kind of there. The formula is there. That is Louis and the Shakes, and I think for me, it's one of our best tracks.
Okay, so can you describe your music in 3 words?
I saw this question. I never know how to answer a question like this, because it's just so like, yeah, I feel like you always have to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got, what did I go for today? I didn't write it down, but it was like terribly, unforgivingly. Oh no, was it that? I can't think. What about really, really good? There you go. It's really, really good.
I'm just quite grateful that you actually stuck to the rules and only gave me 3 words. So what would you say makes your band stand out from others?
I think right now, and it's the thing that it's mad to talk about because we haven't gigged for so long, but our live presence and show is quite a spectacle. You know, we did a festival a couple of years ago on Blackheath, and our manager used to run that festival, and he actually got us the gig on Blackheath. And I think ever since then, he saw us, and I think that really caught his eye. And I'm not saying that that's that is what it is. You know, it's a beautiful thing that he's on board now. But I think I was always aware of it, and then the fact that he sort of turned his head and did a double take and watched our set and really liked it. He still talks about it as this was a great show, and I think for me, I'm aware of that, and now it's time to kind of let other people know. So hopefully when gigs are open again and stuff, the crowds will come. But I think as well, the live show thing's a great sort of standout point. But I think we've got our own sort of sound. We've got this kind of desert-y rock, psychedelic kind of sound that I don't really know any other sort of English bands doing that. And it's got that kind of American twang and appeal to it. And I'm not saying I want to be. We're not ripping off like American bands and stuff like that. We're not trying to be American because then I'd sing in an American accent. But it's got that shine to it. It's got that finesse, that varnish on it that I don't know many other bands doing that right now at our level anyway.
That's it. It's like you say, it's having that sound it stands out, and it's not an easy thing to do as well, because you get a lot of bands that try and get that unique sound, but there's only so much you can do to make that unique sound. But once you do get it's something that, like you say, it stands out. It makes a band really. I've known
totally.
bands. It's like I've known bands that I get so many band requests that come through for reviews, and 9 times out of 10 they all sound the same. You just think, where's that unique sound that's going to make me want to listen to more of your music and make me want to go to a gig, and
right.
just make me want to be a fan of your band, really. It's not like having making the music, but if you sound all the same, what's the point?
Totally. And it's good to hear you say that, because for me, as a songwriter, it's very easy to write stuff like that. And, we could have easily have done that, but then you don't want to be vanilla. You don't want to be the next, I don't want to shit on a band right now, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a very saturated market already, and you're not trying to sort of make yourself a unique selling point, but at the same time you have got to stand out from the crowd, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day. The biggest bands out there have got a defining sound, so you're always chasing that.
Definitely. That's it. So what have you got? I know it's a little bit difficult to say at the minute because of all the restrictions that we've still got at the moment, but what are your plans for the rest of this year?
We've got a big announcement. Well, a big announcement is happening on Wednesday, the 23rd of June, which is just been and gone. We're a couple of days late. But that announcement is a big gig, and a very big venue, one to tick off the bucket list for us, certainly, in London. We encourage everyone to come to that because it's going to be the first gig post-lockdown in London anyway. And it's with a couple of big bands as well. So I like to think that we're sort of mingling with the bigger boys now and stuff. Other plans this year, we're playing a Rewired Festival in August, which is at the Garage, actually just down the road from me in Islington. Which this feeling of putting on, it's going to be like just a crazy day of loud music, amps turned up to full volume. I would imagine that you need to bring ear defenders for that one, but it's going to be just a crazy day of music. I can't really wait for that. That's going to be insane. And then we've got our album coming out in the fall, later in the year, which is going to be, again, just like a real sort of milestone moment for us as a band. We're buzzing to kind of share everyone the songs as well, because obviously you release the singles, but you know that there's more material to come, and it's exciting. you know, there's some real well crafted songs in there. Not just from me writing them, everyone's involvement, production with Michael Smith, our producer. Jamie's involvement was just like second to none. He was with it every step of the way, really like defining and honing our sound. Will and Manny, you know, instrumental in kind of shaping these songs as well. So it's a real sort of, like I said, a sort of celebratory moment, that getting to kind of look at a body of work in our hands, because there will be a vinyl, and you better get yourself one, Sean, because they're going to sell like hotcakes.
That has me twice. You mentioned vinyl, I'm sold.
That's what I want to hear.
So what would you say, if you had to be remembered for one thing apart from your music in the band, what would it be?
Me as an individual?
Yeah.
I've always been quite keen. Keen's not the right word. Let me start again. I've always been quite precious of my sort of like vocals and stuff. Listen, I'm by no means a Freddie Mercury, but like I've really tried to sort of create my sort of sound and my tone and stuff like that. And it's going to change over time, because I kind of want it to as well. You know, with each album, I think it's good to kind of mix things up a bit, even in your singing style. I don't think it should sort of stay the same. But that's not to say that you still can't have your sort of defining tone. So I'd love to be remembered for that. Lyrics is obviously like another sort of special one that's quite close to my heart. That's probably a bit of a vanity project though. And I think there's already some lyricists out there that, you know, they've got their place in history already, and it'd be very hard to sort of rub shoulders with them. You know, I'm thinking of like Alex Turner, Pete Doherty, who else is there? Mozza, you know, people like that. It's very hard to stand amongst those giants. So I think I'd settle for my vocals, hopefully. And also my great fashion sense.
I know you've mentioned about the gigs. Is there any other information that you want to put onto the interview?
Good question, really. Yeah, I'd say like just follow us on the socials, because we've got just new and exciting stuff sort of getting announced weekly at the moment. And like I said, our big announcement coming in October, alongside the album, is like, again, another sort of double take moment, I think, for any sort of indie fan, because they'll be like, oh shit, like, you know, this is like something that I need to be sort of following and listening to right now, you know. Very different to, you know, where we were a couple of years ago, you know, like every other indie band trying to make it. Now there's like real weight behind what we're doing. And I think, yeah, for anyone out there, my advice would be get following us on socials, because you never know what's going to come next from Louie and the Shakes.
Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we will speak again soon.
Of course, I'd love to.